Hi gamers, it's Marina. We have some brand new reveals today, this time mechs and demons. So let's jump on into looking at the new cards. Our first one up here is Ancestral Automaton. Has +3/+2 for each other Ancestral Automaton you've summoned this game, wherever it is. Alright, this is interesting. This is something new for mechs. I like this card. We've seen this in standard. There's similar automatons where every time you summon one, it improves the other ones. This is interesting. My initial thought is like, okay, cycling them, you can get them really big, but then I wonder like, how guaranteed are you to be getting these in the tavern? Like, we all know how hard it is to find that one card we really need sometimes, even from a low tier. So having to rely on cycling this in order for it to get really big is not really something I think you can rely on for like a game-winning strategy or something. However, just running into these on like turn 3, like a tavern that has 2 or 3 of these, like, yeah, I think it's a safe buy. If you see 2 of these when you have 5 or 6 gold, you just grab them and get some nice hefty stats. I think that really where this shines is in that mid game, just giving you some decent stats to kind of bulk up your board. Will we see anything else with this in like game-winning strategies? I don't know. I think that's yet to be seen, but as of right now, this seems okay. You know, actually, the thing that just hit me is it's every time you've summoned this. So if this gets reborn, then this suddenly becomes a much better card. This suddenly becomes a much better card because going up by +3/+2 as a tier 2 is a significant amount of stats. If you get double of these, I feel like this is kind of like an Eternal Night. The only thing is that this has more health, so it's harder to kill. It kind of has that trade-off where if you start growing this and then you're winning fights and then this thing isn't dying, eventually it's going to get outscaled because you're not getting those reborn scaling every single turn. But I like this. I like this. This is cool. Now it's just a matter of how easy it's going to be to get reborn on mechs. And on that note, we're going to skip Pilgrim for a second because I saw this down here. Prosthetic Hand is a magnetic with a reborn. And you can magnetize it to mechs or undead. This is huge. This is awesome. Any card that basically just gives a reborn effect to another card, like we see this in Beasts already. It's been a really strong in Beast to be able to just like basically battle cry that on. It's not a battle cry, but it's a choose one, and you put that onto Beasts and you're golden. This is just so much more of a reliable way to get permanent reborn onto something, right? You don't have to worry about getting a mummifier and then like hitting it with a grave robber or hitting it with a Kel'Thuzad or something to make that a permanent reborn, which is a lot extra work. This is just, you see this in your tavern, you buy this, you can give something permanent reborn, which synergizes perfectly with the mech we just looked at with the automaton. This is a tier 4. So you're not able to put reborn on that automaton right away. I don't know. It shouldn't be too hard, I think, to end up fighting this in your tavern. All right, so backing up one, we have Pilgrim. That is a demon. And it says 1 demon each turn cause health instead of gold to buy. I like this more than that other demon we had where you could get a spell that cost health instead of gold. I think demons tend to be more valuable. This also is a buff to demon cycling, like self-damage demon cycling, because it's just another extra way to do self-damage. Get a demon, and then play the demon and do more self-damage, and have that be growing. Yeah, I think this is going to be pretty neat. Will it turn self-damage demons into a winning composition? I don't know, but it's always nice to have extra pieces to be able to do that, of course. All right, down here we have a Depraved Felfin. This is a Demon Murloc. After you discover a minion, gain the stats of the other options. And it's a tier 5. Okay. Yeah, I don't know about this one. Gaining stats is cool, but typically we want to gain stats out of the tavern, because gaining stats out of the tavern means that they'll have buffs, right? After you discover a minion, gain the stats of the other options. I don't know if I'm missing something that's like super broken about this, but this feels like kind of a useless card on tier 5. This feels like a card that I want on tier 4 at the highest to actually get some scaling that matters. Tier 5 seems a little bit late. Also, does this work? My other question is, does this work with something like Young Murkai triggering a Primal Fin? Because when you have a battle cry that has a discovery option, and you have something automatically triggering the battle cry for you, you don't actually get to discover. It just picks a random option and gives it to you. So in that situation, would this minion, whatever the 2 other options were that the game generated but doesn't actually show you, would this gain those stats in that situation, or does that not count as a discovery? Because if it does count, this card could actually be decent if you're running it in a composition with like Young Murkai with 2 Primal Fins on the side, and then this thing is just gaining a bunch of stats from those. Again, it's not as strong as like a Tavern of buffed minions, but it's decent, I guess. That's really the only situation I could see this being a card worth having. So I would imagine that that is a way that it works. On a demon board, I don't know why you would play this on a demon board. Unless there's something I'm missing, right? Unless there's like a card we haven't seen yet that's gonna make it so when you discover it maintains your tavern buffs or something, then that would be really good for this, but I haven't seen that yet, so we'll see. Alright, and it looks like our last new minion that they're showing us today is Mirage Conjurer. And this is a choose one demon. Either double the attack of all minions in the tavern, or double their health. Oh, what? Okay, it took me a second to process what this was saying. My initial thought was this was working like a slimy Fellblood or a fiery Fellblood or something like that, where it raises the stats for the rest of the game, but I don't think that's what this is doing. I think this is just taking the minions in your current tavern right there in front of you and doubling their attack or doubling their health. This isn't like a permanent thing for all minions in the tavern for the rest of the game. Because that would be broken. I was about to say that would be the absolute most busted thing. That would basically, like, this card would single-handedly just make consume demons the best tribe in the game. And that would be the end of it. So now knowing and understanding what this actually does, yeah, I mean, it's not bad. If you have big tavern stats and you want to drop this down at, you know, the end of your turn before you have a bunch of demons consume minions from the tavern, yeah, I think that's pretty good. We haven't seen yet if we're losing, like, Shelemental. Well, I guess it would have been in the Elemental video yesterday, so we're not losing Shelemental. So, yeah, this could be good as a combination with something like Shelemental as well. Overall, an interesting card. I like this kind of play. I think this is a good addition. Alright, so we're on to our returning and changing minions. First one we have here is a Kaboombot, minion we haven't seen in a little while. This is a Death Rattle, deal 4 damage to a random enemy minion. Pretty solid of a mech. Nice to see it back. Our next minion here, it looks like a change, bringing a Noyo module from tier 4 down to tier 3, so it's a bit easier to find. Demons are getting a keyboard igniter back. This is a battle cry. Give your other demons +2/+2 and deal 2 damage to your hero. Next up, mechs are getting a Greasebot back. Divine Shield. After a friendly minion loses Divine Shield, give it +1/+1 permanently. You know, when we got Sunscreener, and I looked at that minion and I said, why would you want to, like, give everyone Divine Shield? This makes sense. I think it would be really weird if they didn't put this minion back in the game. Give it +1/+1 permanently. I don't know if that's still worth it to run something like Sunscreener on a normal board unless you have like a really specific reason why you would want to run it. Yeah, I don't know. Grease Bot seems okay. I guess if you're running Deflectobot and it's going off a bunch of times, that's okay for your Deflectobot. If you get this early enough, it's a tier 4, so you don't get it too late, you know. Alright, and our next minion we have is a Kangor's Apprentice. Kangor has always been a pretty solid card. It's a neutral type minion, but its death rattle is to summon your first 2 mechs that died this combat. So it works as sort of like a cultist for demons, except it does not summon them with its enchantments or buffs or anything like that. This is an okay card for certain compositions. It can be really strong in certain situations, or it can just kind of be okay. It really depends what we're running. Our next minion back is a Mecha Jiraxis. This is a Mecha Demon, and this is a battle cry. Get a random magnetic Mecha Demon. Yeah, this is solid. This is one of those minions that if you're running mechs or demons and you saw it in your tavern, sometimes you grabbed it to try and give something Wind Fury or Reborn. Now it's a lot easier to get Reborn with that tier 4 Undead Magnetic. So maybe this isn't as exciting because you're really just looking for a 1 out of 3 chance of getting the Wind Fury off this. If you have a way of proccing battle cries like Young Murkai or something, this isn't awful. Just getting some extra stats off Mecha Demons. Alright, these are the mechs and demons that we are losing. I'm just going to go ahead and read the list real quick. This is Ziliax, Murgle Mark II, Replicating Menace, Crafty Aranosi, Floating Watcher, Mechanized Givehorse, Felbor, and Untamable. Some of these, I'm not going to miss. Some of these I'm kind of glad they're leaving. Like Ziliax, I feel like Ziliax just kind of diluted the mech pool, and now with that tier 4 undead mech that gives Reborn with Mecha Jiraxis, it's just, I don't think we need Ziliax. That's fine. Bye, Ziliax. Some of these other ones, they were kind of underwhelming. Replicating Menace is weird to see leave because I feel like we've had it for such a long time, but again with the Reborn, I guess that's replacing basically what that thing does by spawning a mech. Floating Watcher, I think, is the biggest surprise to me. Because Floating Watcher is the demon that gets buffed every single time you do damage to yourself. And they're adding more cards to do self-damage. So why are we getting rid of Floating Watcher? Is there going to be some trinket that replaces this ability? I have no idea. I'm very confused by that one because we didn't really get a replacement for that. Without Floating Watcher, I don't see any viability with self-damage demons, so I don't know, we'll see. Mechanized Givehorse has been a staple for such a long time, in beasts in particular, so wow, that's one that is interesting to see leave. Alright, we're jumping into our trinkets now. We got our lesser trinkets. First one is Automaton Portrait. Get an Ancestral Automaton, start of combat, summon an Ancestral Automaton. Alright, this is pretty decent. Every single turn, you're going to be guaranteed to summon one, which will buff your other ones. Yeah, this seems like it would be nice to play. I still don't know how this Ancestral Automaton will fit into some kind of game-winning strategy. This in and of itself seems strong enough, you know, to give them some buffs for sure. Our next trinket is Blingtron's Sunglasses. After you summon a mech in combat, give a friendly mech a Divine Shield. This one seems pretty good. This potentially gives your whole board of mechs the possibility of doing something like Deflectobot does, where you're giving things Divine Shield. If your mechs have a Reborn, this is gonna be. I think this is gonna be good. I think this is really cool to see. If you have these giant mechs from all these magnetics and stuff, because we didn't see that going away, right? We didn't see Beatboxer leaving or anything that would affect that. So we're in a really strong place, I think, with mechs. This is a cool trinket. I think this is pretty good. Our next trinket we have is Charging Staff. At the end of each turn, give your minions with Divine Shield +4 attack. This is pretty good. End of turn effects are always strong. We can multiply our end of turn effects to make this even bigger. Yeah, I see this one being pretty decent. Costing 3 and being a lesser you can get on turn 6. I think this is a pretty nice all-arounder. Our next trinket is Fishy Sticker. Start of combat, summon a fish of N'Zoth that copies death rattles. Alright, so this basically gives you the N'Zoth fish. You have to have a spot on your board for it. You can't really buff it or anything like that because it is a start of combat. This is one I guess you grab if you just kind of have the setup. If you have like death rattles going and this makes sense for you. Sure. Our next trinket is a Glowing Gauntlet. Minions in the tavern have +3/+3. It seems okay. It seems like it really pales in comparison compared to the trinket we looked at yesterday from the elemental reveal, where your slimy and fiery fellbloods give +2/+2 to the tavern every time they're triggered, because that trinket already is just going to give your tavern +2/+2 permanently, and you get the ability to make it keep going up even more. This just seems like a way worse version of that. I'm not really sure why this exists, especially for 4 gold. This doesn't seem very good. Our next trinket is Kaboombot Portrait. Get a Kaboombot, and your Kaboombot's death rattles deal 8 extra damage. 8 extra damage. So they already deal, I believe, 2 damage to a random minion. Or is it? Oh, they deal 4 damage to a random minion. So you're dealing 12 damage off of a death rattle from a Kaboombot. This isn't game winning in the end game, but on turn 6, if you have 1 or 2 Kaboombots, this is pretty good. This is not a bad pick to get you through pretty much guaranteed into the late game. All right, our next one is Rewinder Portrait. Get a Soul Rewinder and a Wrathweaver. Your Soul Rewinders also gain attack. This is an interesting way by giving you both of these to allow you to pivot on turn 6 into demons. You remember when I said they're getting rid of Floating Watcher, or they're going to replace it with a trinket? It looks like this is their way of trying to replace that. Overall, this seems pretty good. The fact that they give you the Wrathweaver and the Soul Rewinder, so you actually have a way of proccing that self-damage reliably, immediately. Yeah, this seems okay. I think this is a really well-designed trinket. From all of the ones I've seen, I like this one a lot. Alright, on to our greater trinkets. We have a Boom Controller. When you have space, summon an exact copy of your first mech that died this combat. Okay, so that's that kind of has a built-in like Kangor's Death Rattle, where you summon an exact copy. So summon an exact copy also means that it keeps its stats, right? Keeps its enchantments. So that's pretty good. Kangor does not keep enchantments when it summons mechs. This also works, I will say, with like all type minions. So if you're doing something with like a big all type minion, this could pull that back up. Next, we have an upgraded version of Charging Staff. At the end of turn, give your minions with Divine Shield +7 attack. This would be cool to double up with the lesser Charging Staff if you get that and you have Divine Shields. On turn 9, +7 attack to your Divine Shields. Yeah, if you're running a board full of Divine Shields, which I don't really think is that hard to do with multiple tribes, yeah, this could be okay. Our next one is a Fellbat Portrait. Get a Famished Fellbat. The tavern always has 7 cards. Yeah, this is a huge trinket for Consume Demons. The tavern always having 7 cards. It replaces that problem that we have as Consume Demon players, where you see something you really want and you buy it and you're just missing that 1 gold to be able to refresh your tavern and refill it. The tavern always having 7 cards is wild, because yeah, that means that when you buy something, it will immediately replace that card. This is just a good effect overall for anybody, no matter what you're playing. But getting that Famished Velvat too, yeah, this seems really really strong. The way trinkets kind of seem to work right now is like, you really hope that the trinkets synergize with what you've been doing. And if they don't, you weigh whether it's worth it to pivot. I don't know. We'll have to see how games play out. Our next trinket we have here is Fishy Sticker. This is just a better version of the other N'Zoth one we saw, where you're going to summon a golden fish of N'Zoth. So basically, it's going to copy the death rattles twice. Yeah, if you're running, again, a heavy death rattle board and this makes sense, go for it. Our next one is Fridge Magnet. This is an Avenge 3, get a random magnetic minion. Yeah, I mean, we didn't lose Utility Drone, so if you're running Utility Drone, you want to take this, sure, makes sense. It's definitely not a bad card at all. Next, we have Glowing Gauntlet. Minions in the tavern have +7/+7. If you're already running Tavern Scaling, if you're already running Consume Demons, and you don't get Fellbat Portrait, which I think is far superior to this, sure. But giving minions in your tavern +7/+7 is not going to win the game for you. This is just, I feel like, objectively weaker than some of the other trinkets we've seen. Your next one is Mechagon Adapter. After a friendly mech loses Divine Shield, give it Divine Shield. Sorry, this one kind of broke me, because I'm immediately imagining those boards that feel impossible to beat, because you're fighting these giant 1,000 Divine Shielded beatboxers with taunt that you're running into. And the thought of you running into that thing, it losing Divine Shield, and then getting Divine Shield back immediately is, that seems pretty broken. Also, this basically removes any counterplay for Divine Shields. As far as running something like a Tunnel Blaster to get rid of all the Divine Shields, because you get rid of Divine Shields and then it's going to bring back at least 3 of those Divine Shields. I know it's not a complete, like, answer to countering. This seems like it is very annoying because this very much so, like, pigeonholes your opponent into needing to run a Tunnel Blaster and then hope that the minions that are giant don't just get their Divine Shields back. Also, given that Tunnel Blaster getting rid of Divine Shields and then it randomly getting 3 back, this seems like if you're gonna run this trinket, you probably want to consolidate your Divine Shields anyway, so that maybe you have 1 or 2, ideally, I would say, giant minions. This also doesn't protect against Leroy's, obviously. If a Leroy hits a giant minion with Divine Shield, it'll pop off the Divine Shield. I'm pretty sure it'll trigger this once and put a Divine Shield back on it, so it'll waste a charge, and then it'll still kill it. That's something to keep in mind. It does not protect against Leroy's, but I don't know. This feels like in the right setup, it can be super, super strong and really forces your opponent to have the right answer, which I feel like a lot of other trinkets don't really do that. So that's interesting. And our last trinket we have today is Nether Pendant. Minions in the tavern have +1/+1. Upgrades every 4 times your hero takes damage. This is weird. The first thing to remember is you're getting this starting on turn 9, which means that, assuming you haven't upgraded your tavern by turn 9, they only have +1/+1. Then you have to give yourself damage 4 times, and then you're going to give your tavern some buffs. But the thing is, traditionally, you either run self-damaging demons or you run consume demons. You don't really do both. So using self-damage to buff your tavern, to then, I guess, grab like a Fellbat or something to get some extra, like, I don't know. This seems kind of mid. So far, when it comes to the demon trinkets, I think my favorite by far is the Famished Fellbat. I think that one's really good. And actually, when I think about it, I think the one we saw with Elementals that buffs your Slimy and Fiery Fellbuds, I think that's my favorite. And I think the Fellbat is pretty close, but like a second place. I think most of the other demon ones are just trinkets you get that have you feeling like you wish you would have gotten those other ones. Alright gamers, thank you so much for watching. That's it for today's reveals. There will be more tomorrow, so make sure you subscribe and check back for a video tomorrow detailing all of that stuff. Yeah, thank you so much.